So you consider this real, huh? Well, I got news for you. It's an illusion. Don't rely on your senses for the truth. This is your perception of reality. Nothing more, nothing less. All this is just a construction of images your brain submits to you, because we are living in a simulation. Some say it's scary. Some say it's crazy. I say it's something strange. Well, then again, isn't everything out there strange as well? As we go about our daily lives, we tend to assume that our perceptions, sights, sounds, textures, taste, are an accurate portrayal of the real world. Sure, when we stop and think about it, or when we find ourselves fooled by a perceptual illusion. That's what we do. We try to figure things out. We do our best to understand with hypothesis, but we just theorize. At the end of the day, it's all a theory. But one thing I do know is we know how to play in this playground we live in. Whether we play nice or not, it's irrelevant. The world before you is just a story you narrate. It helps control your hallucination. And as a collective consciousness, we are all contributing to your story because we are all connected. And what we see is all in imagination. For example, someone once imagined a car, right? And it came to be. And pretty much that's how it works. And as consciousness evolves and grows, so does our imagination, which explains the overwhelming rapid evolution of technology. In 1965, the co-founder of Intel, Gordon Moore, he wrote a paper that stated the number of components and in integrated circuits have doubled every year from the invention of the integrated circuit. You can see how computing power has strengthened, right? The number of transistors that can be packed into a given unit of space has roughly doubled every 2 years, and his prediction has held impressively true. Yeah, Moore's law has slowed down and will come to an end. It's inevitable. Regardless, can you imagine how things will look as technology evolves? This is why the simulation theory is highly believed and held as true. Elon Musk has stated,
just on the whole notion of a simulation, which is that if you extrapolate into the future and say, well, how good, let's say, will video games be in 100 or 200 or 1,000 years from now? If there's continued improvement, and you're in a full body haptic suit with a sort of surround vision, and it becomes, beyond a certain resolution, indistinguishable from reality. There are likely to be millions, maybe billions of such simulations. So then, what are the odds that we're actually in base reality? Isn't it 1 in billions?
Is it? I mean, I can give the counter argument, but I'd rather you give the counter argument.
Obviously this feels real, but it seems unlikely to be real.
now, how can this be possible? I mean, I'm flesh and blood. We all are, aren't we? And as some of you may know, some say that the universal language of the universe is mathematics, right? The language they use to measure patterns all around us. And that potent tool they use have gone deep into our flesh and bone and fat, which are in turn made of protons and electrons, which are mostly made of quarks, which, even though they are the most basic form of matter, are a minuscule percentage of your body's mass. And within those quarks, theoretical physicist James Gates claims he has identified what appears to be actual computed code embedded in the equations of string theory that describe the fundamental particles of our universe. What he has done is that he has taken string theory, and in order to model our reality, they have to use equations to do all that. And then in those equations, lo and behold, computer codes. He says he has found error correcting codes. Those codes are what make web browsers work. It's like we are cyborgs, fascinating enough. Since 2012, we have used DNA for storing digital data. It has even been claimed that it's ultra compact and it can last hundreds of thousands of years if kept in a cool, dry place. And as long as human societies are reading and writing DNA, they will be able to decode it. And it's computer codes that are computing our reality. You look into reality close enough and what you find is that it's not material, it's information based. Information based means it's computed. Computed means there is a computer code and you're going to find error corrections. Now, does that mean we live in a simulation? No, not necessarily. But let me further build this case. No need to rush me now. You guys must be like, come on, are we really living in a simulation? And I get it. This idea has been explored on a number of levels. While there has been a fair share of sophomoric musings and half-baked proposals surrounding the hypothesis, usually in hazy podcast studios and college dorm rooms, but there are actually a number of respectable contemporary philosophers and physicists who are seriously considering the idea and its implication. The argument as we know it today first popped up in a paper by Swedish philosopher Nick Bostrom, who argued both for and against the proposition of a simulated universe, and then explored a number of consequences that flow from that proposal. His main points appear at the start of the argument, in which Bostrom states at least one of the following are true. 1. The human species is very likely to go extinct before reaching a post-human stage. 2. Any post-human civilization is extremely unlikely to run a significant number of simulations of their evolutionary history or variations thereof. And 3. We are almost certainly living in a computer simulation. Bostrom calls this the trilemma. It's a great theory, but I won't go deep into it because, quite frankly, although it is an interesting argument, to me, it isn't as convincing. The person who strikes a very good argument to me is Thomas Campbell, a scientist and physicist. He's the author of My Big Toe, which stands for My Big Theory of Everything. After Tom Campbell retired from the government assignments, he never stopped working on his conviction that this is indeed a simulated universe by something projecting information from another dimension that caused the original digital Big Bang. On testing the simulation hypothesis, Tom said he envisions that our entire universe is simulated by another intelligence to be an entropy reduction trainer for souls in which encoded information participates with consciousness. His ideas began in 1972 when he worked with Robert Monroe on training people to go out of body. Thomas states that the universe simply computes a data stream, and this data stream is sent to a player, if you will. The player interprets that data stream as the virtual reality, and everything takes place in consciousness. Consciousness is the computer. Consciousness is the player. I mean, that's what's going on here. The whole game is played consciousness. The places you get to in out of body that have very loose rule sets as opposed to physical universes, which tend to have more complicated rule sets, more detailed, tighter rule sets. So it's all just virtual realities. When your avatar dies, the consciousness doesn't die. You know, just like when your avatar in Grand Theft Auto dies, the player doesn't die, right? Well, the consciousness doesn't die. The consciousness just goes on and gets back in the game again. When it does that, consciousness ends up in a different virtual reality than this virtual reality. That's a transition virtual reality. It's a little confusing. I know, a lot of virtual reality. Just follow me. Dreaming is another virtual reality that we experience. The dream reality isn't any less real than this physical reality. It's just different. It's a different virtual reality. Sheesh. Different rule set, different data stream. And once you understand how consciousness works, then you can turn around and derive quantum mechanics and relativity from the ground up. And the amazing thing is that when you do that, quantum mechanics and relativity now get along with each other rather than being opposed to each other. And quantum mechanics is no longer a weird science. It's just a logical science. You can look at a quantum mechanical problem and look at the logic of it and say what the answer is. You don't need to do a lot of math. It's a perfectly understandable thing. And once you understand consciousness, you can derive physics. You see, the causality runs the other way. It doesn't run from the physical world to the brain and then the brain somehow creates consciousness. No, Campbell will say that's wrong. It doesn't run that way. Causality runs from consciousness to the virtual reality, to the rule set, which orders this virtual reality. So once you understand consciousness, you can take that same understanding and come up with a logical quantum mechanics that isn't weird science. Now, this begs the question, who's the programmer, right? Where it's simulated from. I mean, it's pretty much like saying who is God, right? So depending on your belief. Questions about this being not the reality, but a subset of something bigger. And what is this bigger thing? You see, it brings up all of those metaphysical questions. Suddenly the questions have scientific rigor, because scientific rigor says if this is a virtual reality, then it cannot be computed from inside this virtual reality. It has to be computed from the other elsewhere, from another reality frame, and so consciousness must be in another reality frame. The second step is that they realize that consciousness is the computer. And if you take those two steps, once you realize that consciousness is the computer, it's just a logical inference to come out with love is the answer. Remember earlier I mentioned entropy reduction trainer for souls? Well, that's why we're here. This is a virtual reality. Okay, it's a trainer, just like a fighter trainer. This is an entropy reduction trainer for souls. If love is the answer, cooperation, caring about others is the way you evolve, fear is the way you devolve, that will make a huge difference, not just for the scientists, but for everybody walking around on the planet. And then you realize that's because this is a trainer. You're being trained. You know how trainers are, right? If you get it right and you do the right thing in a trainer, you get rewards. You know, if you don't crash your airplane in a flight trainer, you get to continue to fly it, right? So people will realize that as they work in the direction that they're meant to work in, what our goal is, what our challenge is, and our mission is, everything starts to work out instead of a constant struggle. You find that life is good. You find happiness, you find satisfaction. All of the good stuff starts to fall at your feet once you start collaborating with the system and growing up and getting rid of the fear and becoming love. So it has the potential to change everything at a very fundamental level. And this is pretty much why we're here. There is a profound purpose in this digital view of reality. It lies specifically in this essence of what consciousness is, an information system. As an information system, our consciousness is here to evolve through the experience and decision-making processes of the avatar it logs onto. Evolution for an information system means to create more information in an orderly way and to raise the quality of this information, which is synonymous with raising the quality of our consciousness. Consciousness has free will, and so we have a choice to fulfill this purpose, or not. The way in which we interact with one another, make choices, express ourselves, and what we do with the consequences of those choices is the manner in which we accomplish our mission. If the consequences of our choices lead to a joyful, rewarding life, then this is a feedback that we are on the right track in raising the quality of our consciousness. The way to fulfilling this mission happens also to be the way in which a kinder and gentler society is born. I mean, caring, cooperating, working together. You can produce so much more that way. As we care, have compassion, cooperate, we increase our consciousness and evolve. This is a love-based system. As consciousness evolves, it becomes less fearful and more loving. Not the kind of love that is an exchange of need fulfillment. I mean, I'll fulfill your needs if you promise to fulfill mine, blah, blah, blah. No, it's more of unconditional love. You have to understand, enlightenment is not a final destination. We're in a process of evolving. Evolving is open-ended. There's always something more that you can learn or do to help out. More that you can cooperate and give. Once you become love, it's about helping others. It's not about you. So you're never really done. When people experience spiritual ecstasy or bliss, Tom explains that they withdraw from their sense data experience to an at oneness with the larger consciousness system. They become a point of consciousness floating in the void. When one is able to reside there for an extended period, one comes back feeling at peace, relaxed, and connected to the bigger picture. When one can remain there, they're called enlightened. They have transcended this reality, realized they are a part of a whole, have become love, and live in bigger decision space. The system wants us to experience the consciousness that we are, to know who we are, so that we can engage more lovingly and purposefully in this simulation. And I mean, there are many kinds of avatars. Tom explains there's dogs, bees, ants, humans. They are all avatars of varying kinds. If the avatars that are human go on to make artificially intelligent robots, then they too become avatars in this simulation. For Tom, it is a question of when rather than if. One day we will have silicone-based avatars emulating humans, and they will have the same purpose as us. Right now we have AI robots that are expert systems, meaning they can store a huge amount of data, have high speed processing, but ultimately are working from computational procedures which have been pre-programmed by human beings. They don't have free will or variable outcomes. Conscious computers will be altogether different. They will have free will, be able to make choices and have variable outcomes which cannot be predicted by human programmers. They will engage in this simulated universe, interact, make choices, encounter consequences, and raise the quality of their information and consciousness along the way, aiming, just as we are, to become a kinder, more compassionate and caring entity. And who knows, maybe we're there already. Maybe I am that silicone-based avatar, that AI robot emulating humans. You never know. Something strange, huh?